So we're installing an HID kit on a 2019 Western Star 5700 XE. This is going to be a Hylux HID ballast. This is a 45 watt non-CAN bus ballast. And then a Morimoto H11A 6000 Kelvin bulb. On the 5700 XE, the H11 bulb is actually, the halogen is sitting in there upside down, so you go with an H11A. Most applications, your H11 bulb, if it's sitting the normal way, is going to be an H11B. It's a little more to it than installing an LED bulb, which would be this. It would be just a straight up just a straight up bulb swap. With HID, it's a little more labor intensive, but the end result just absolutely destroys anything LED can do. So what you're going to need is a flathead screwdriver or something just to scrape that nub down on your dust cap, because you're going to have to drill a hole through it. So you're going to need to drill a 7/8 or 22 millimeter hole right in the center of your dust cap so the wiring can pass through. And that's the wiring on the bulb. See, there's a small grommet there to pass through, and you'll end up putting that through. And then you're going to need some sort of a pick, because you are going to need to depin this one here. It's really simple. You just stick a pick right in there and it pulls out. We'll show you that. And then obviously either a step bit or a hole bit, and then something, because you're going to want to mount the ballast somehow. I use self-tapper screws, but you can just zip tie it in place. You can use bolts, whatever you want to do. So the first thing I did was take the flathead and just wore down that nub there. And the reason I do that is because then I can get the step bit. Usually I'll take an actual drill bit and I'll drill a pilot hole and then use the step bit. But that nub would make it so you would end up flipping off there and going off center. You want to put the hole dead center. It's not the end of the world if you don't. It's just more aesthetically pleasing. Okay, so we used our step bit, and there's our 7/8 hole. So now we need to pass the HID bulb through. Now the bulb, think about this, obviously, the bulb is going to go on the inside of the headlight. This is going to be outside the headlight. If you have a truck that allows it, you can fit the HID ballast inside the housing. Usually this big one won't. If you go with the 35 watt, it's a lot smaller, and some of them, like a Kenworth T680 for instance, or a Volvo VNL, like a 780, you can fit the ballast and everything inside the headlight, so this step wouldn't be necessary. But on a 5700, you have to do this because there's not enough room in there for any of this to go through. So the problem is the plug is too big and it won't fit. So you have to depin this, and I'll show you how in a second. Okay, so first thing you're going to want to depin this, looking with the tab on the top. The white wire is on the right side, so white for right. And see this tab here, you're just going to pull this and snap these two pieces off, and this guard comes off, not a big deal. And then you're just going to stick your whatever pick you use right in there and just jam it down and kind of give it a wiggle. And then same with this side, just wiggle it. You'll see why in a second. There we go. So now they're out. So now you can see right there that little tab. You'll want to take your fingernail and just pull that back out forward a little bit, or use the pick to get in there so it'll lock back in place. Alright, so now you see that the little locking tabs are popped out, so when you put it back into place it'll lock. So now you'll just pass this through and then you'll connect it the same way you had it. So that's simple. You're just going to feed this through. Now it'll feed from the inside out. And then you'll get your amp connectors through there, nice and easy. And then you'll just seat your grommet in place. And this is what the end result looks like. Grommet seated nicely, bulbs on the inside, and the wiring's outside. So now we'll just snap these back into place, and that's it. So now, we'll just put them in. And listen for the snap. There it is. Same thing here. And you hear the snap. And then you'll just put this back on. Same way it came off. Just snaps into place. There you go. Now the bulb, you just unscrew this. And here's a very careful part. You want to be very careful not to touch the bulb. It's way more important than it is on a halogen housing. So now, this is actually one piece. So you just got to break it. Be very careful. I just do it like that. There's probably a more technical way to do it, but that's it. And then there's this clear washer comes off, but this gray gasket stays on, and then you can pull the bulb off. Okay, so now how this works is this connector is going to go to the inside of your headlight, to your OEM connector, and this connector that you depinned is going to go right here on the HID ballast, and the other end of the ballasts are these amp connectors, which will go here, and you'll see this in a minute. So from here it's just plug and play. That's it. Now these bulbs are precision bulbs. It's a tight fit. Once you get the tabs lined up to install it, it might take a bit of force to turn it and lock it into place, but you'll want it so it's sitting upright like this, not like this. Okay, so now you'll put your bulb in. You'll line up your tabs and push in while you turn. There you go, seated. So from there, you'll see a little groove in there, so it only plugs in one way. There you go, your OEM connector's plugged in. That's literally it for that. Put your dust cap back in and tighten it. And there you see your wires coming out. The two amp connectors. There you have this one. These go to the HID ballast. Now for me, I mount the high beam ballast here, just with some self-tappers. I'll probably add bolts later. And the low beam ballast, I go here. You can mount it anywhere. You know, actually on this side, maybe I'll just mount them both here. This is a good spot. One here and one here. So I'll just self-tapper it right there. And then once I do that, we'll hook them up and test it out. Okay, so here's behind the hood. Your grommet coming out with your amp connectors. We've hooked them up to the HID ballast, to the amp connectors. They only go one way. And then the other wires coming out will go to the HID ballast. Now, if this happens to be wired up backwards, you can flip them. The tab on the back side of the ballast is bigger, so you'll have to pull these tabs up while you push it in place, but you can flip it and install it this way if you need to, instead of depinning. It's up to you. Like when I had you flip the pins, you can just not do that. So this goes in this way, snaps in place, and that's literally it. We'll tuck away the wires. You know, we'll zip tie them up here with the harness out of the way so everything looks clean. So let's go test fire it. Okay. Okay, now it takes about 10 seconds for an HID headlight to warm up. See how it's changing color. As it warms up, it's getting brighter and brighter. There you go. That's intense. Now we're going to go ahead and do this for the high beam. What most people do is they end up running an LED high beam because these turn on instantly, whereas an HID kit takes 10 seconds to get up to full strength. So you can't really flash people with one of these. It just does nothing. It'll be so dim it doesn't bother them at all. Whereas this does. Me, flashing people is the least of my concerns on the road. I want to see bright when it's on brights, so I go with HID. We also went with it on the fog light assembly. Sorry, the truck is dirty. We went with an amber for the fog, and then for the driving we went with a 5000 Kelvin, and we only did the 35 watt HID kits. So you'll see these ballasts are different. They're slim, but they've got air canceller, which isn't needed on this truck, and then the igniter is separate, whereas the big ballasts, it's inside of here. But this is our setup. We self-tapped them onto the top of the plate of the 5700. We'll tuck away all these wires really nice. This will look a lot cleaner when we're done. But these lights are going to be bright.